Hey everybody, and welcome to the CineFix Top 100. It's not the movie podcast that we need, but it's the movie podcast we deserve. I'm Clint Gage, and I'm ditching that voice before I blow out my vocal cords, but joining me as always, the least corrupt member of CineFix's Major Crimes Unit, Alex Stedman. Alex, what's happening?
Hello, Clint. That's a bad one. We cannot keep
It's
doing
hard,
that.
right?
It is hard. I'm Batman. It's people make fun of Christian Bale, but
Swear
it's not
to
that easy.
me! And of course, also joining us, mob accountant Michael Calabro. Cal, what's happening, man? How are those numbers?
Not great, Clint.
It's too bad. How's everything aside from that?
Yeah, it's fine.
How are we doing?
Chugging along.
We're talking about a movie here, right?
We are talking about
We're talking about a movie.
Clint, or Cal.
Oh, are we talking about cinema?
Yeah, we are.
I feel like we've parted the curtain on the debate that's going to happen later in this episode.
Can you
already.
tell we've already talked a little bit about it?
But in the meantime, it is starting to feel like we are kind of on the home stretch here in season 3. We've got 4 more episodes left, including this one by my count. And then after that, we will have fully explored the idea of being alone against the world. That's all it takes, is talking about 14 algorithmically selected movies, and we've got a good picture. But the other thing interesting about this week's episode is we're finally talking about a superhero movie. We made it 45 episodes in, almost to the halfway point, before we get into the cape shit. How about that?
Oh, look at us.
It was only a matter of time.
Is that surprising or the least surprising?
It was only a matter of time.
I think it's surprising. I don't know. I kind of like the cape shit. Some of them are on my list.
How much cape shit is on your list?
God, if I had to, maybe 3 cape shits.
Okay.
Maybe 3.
All right.
Yeah.
I honestly haven't. I haven't looked in a while. I'm sure there's one on there somewhere.
I am proud to say that there are 0 superhero movies on my list.
Whoa, we got a cool
No
guy
cape,
over
no cape
here.
shit for Cal.
No cape shit for me. I may have a fox, a hot fox, but I have no
He's
cape.
a hot fox.
I have no cape shit on my list, and that has to count for something.
Wait, so you don't do you have a superhero movie that you like?
This is listen, I'm gonna get very.
What about the pretentious ones like Unbroken and?
Come on.
Unbreakable?
Unbreakable.
Come on. Unbreakable, really?
Or is
Yeah, Unbreakable's good.
There's plenty of good movies that aren't on my list too.
Oh, this is gonna be fun today, guys.
Like, and like,
No, it doesn't need to be on your list. Like, have you seen a cape shit and we're like, oh yeah, I like that.
we're gonna talk about one today.
Okay.
We talking about 2 movies today?
We're talking about one movie today.
Okay. But it's one. Okay. Well,
We
listen,
haven't actually
before we
said
get
what
into
the
that,
movie is.
we haven't actually.
Batman
again, this is
Forever,
our-
starring Val Kilmer.
pretense.
Obviously, one of
the
the best.
The best
Two-Face.
Batman.
Yeah,
the
absolutely. But before we get in it, and before we say what we're here to talk about, because nobody knows at this point, it's a
No.
big surprise every time we do announce the movie that we're talking about a couple minutes into the show. Nothing says superhero movies quite like tie-in merch, so let's get this business out of the way. Ikiru and Uncut Gems, I'm going to go ahead and say it, they're like the Batman and Joker of film snobbery. And we proved it once and for all by making a This Is How I Win t-shirt, which one of us is finally wearing on camera
Woo!
today. Look at this. I got my This Is How I Win t-shirt.
Looks
This is
good.
going to be on sale for the rest of the season, which, as I said, was it's just a mere 4 episodes away. Have you guys got any for your moms yet?
Yeah, I gotta get them stocking stuffers.
I got one for my mom. My mom loves Ikiru.
I hope you're being
My
serious.
mom actually told me the other day. She was like, I heard you guys talking about the something that I would like, a t-shirt. And I was like, I don't know if it's you specifically, Mom, but you might. I'll get you a t-shirt. So
I do kind of want to get them.
I don't think my mom knows I have a podcast.
What? My mom loves this podcast. Shout out to you, Deb.
well, we've got Deb and Sharon on board.
Hell yeah,
as
Deb and
moms
Sharon.
that enjoy the podcast. So enough of that. Let's get into what we're talking about this week. We've already hotly debated or previewed the hot debates we're about to have in terms of how we feel about this movie. We're talking about The Dark Knight. 2008, Christopher Nolan's sequel to Batman Begins from just a few years prior. The middle installment of his Dark Knight trilogy, his much ballyhooed Dark Knight trilogy, it finds Christian Bale's Batman facing off with the existential threat posed by the Joker and, the hope that Harvey Dent's going to clean up Gotham without a mask so Bruce Wayne can retire with Rachel Dawes, who looks different this time than she did the last time. that's more or less the movie, right? That's your understanding of the Dark
That's all
Knight,
that
having
happened.
just recently
Yeah.
watched it. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this movie, or can we just wrap this episode early?
I think this movie rules.
You're on board with it, Alex?
I'm solidly on board with it. I feel like, when I first saw it, I was like 16. I've said this before. I really wasn't into movies that much until like college. And I have a very specific memory of going to see this in the theaters with my family, actually, and just leaving being like, oh my God, like that was a real movie.
This is a hell of a movie for a 16-year-old.
No, and that's like, and people laugh
I feel
at
like
me
16-year-olds are primed to love
Yeah,
this
this is
movie.
prime 16.
And you know what? I was 16 years old, and like people laugh at me when I say this, but I was like, it was one of the first movies where I was like, man, you can really make a film. Like this is truly like
I love that
this
you
is
said.
art, brother.
I love that you said that. Like how like young like Marty McFly's son is like, Ma, you really know how to hydrate a pizza.
Yeah. You can make make a film if you want to, man.
This is a hydrated.
All you got to do is try.
All you gotta do is work real hard.
This is a hydrated pizza if I've ever seen one.
No, but this movie like broke my brain when I saw it. I've said that before, but I love it. I watch it probably once a year, once every couple years. It's like, it's one of those things, you put it on the TV and I'm gonna shut up and watch it. It's like putting Coco Melon on for a kid. Like, this is my Coco Melon.
Sure. That's you might be the only person that's ever said that.
The Dark Knight is my Coco Melon?
Compare, yeah. I'll expect a think piece about The Dark Knight and its relationship to Coco Melon on my desk on Monday.
Yeah.
Cal, what about you? What were your first thoughts of this movie?
When this movie came out in 2008, I distinctly remember I was out here. Like I interned this summer out here, and I watched this and Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk and Hellboy 2 and Wanted and Hancock.
It's almost like 2008 was an important watershed summer for some type of movie.
And I
I really liked Hancock. I just remembered that.
And I just
Hancock is the movie that gets lost in the superhero.
I feel
It does. It was good.
It was very much not.
I
bad,
had a poster for it.
but
in
I think
my
everybody
basement,
forgets
so.
about it completely.
I feel like
It's
I'm
sort of like Last Action Hero. Of it's just like, no, we're not ready to make fun of that yet.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like I'm still missing one from that summer, but anyway,
It was a big summer.
2008 was like maybe the coolest movie summer probably since. I don't think there's been a summer that topped it, because like outside of all those superhero movies, you still had WALL-E, you had Step Brothers, you had Tropic Thunder, like all those.
Dude,
you had
2008.
Pineapple Express.
Oh my God, I love all those movies. I think maybe 2008
the fact that
was
all those movies,
They all came out that
the fact
summer.
that all those movies came out within the same like 3.5-4 months of each other is wild.
I feel like maybe
Mamma Mia also, if
Yeah.
you're into
Oh.
Mamma Mia.
Forgetting-
for pointing
for-
that out.
Forgetting
Thanks, Tayo.
Sarah Marshall.
Oh my God. I feel like maybe the year 2008 is overrepresented on my list. You're just naming bangers right now.
Like
You just rattled off
Kung
Only
Fu.
a bunch of my
fifth
list.
of Alex's
yeah,
list.
Yeah.
Like seriously, like I just distinctly remember that summer being like, whoa. Other low key banger that came out that year that no one really appreciates. Speed Racer.
Part of that sentiment is correct. I do not appreciate that movie.
Yeah. And like, despite, I was like a child in this year, but like, I don't remember any of that. I only remember The Dark Knight.
Let's also not forget Indiana Jones and the Legend of the Crystal Skull.
Or we could
also
forget.
a
The
2008.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
What did I
Come
say?
The Legend.
Legend, Kingdom. Listen, Nuke the Fridge was born that summer.
Yeah.
God, what
Yeah.
a time. What a time to be alive.
Let us not forget to honor nuking the fridge.
Yeah.
Seriously, have we had a year like that since? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like now we can just enter that into the discussion of, is 2008 the best year of movies of all time?
I think while I'm alive, yeah.
Well, I mean, if that's just the summer, I mean, that makes everything you rattled off just then make a good year.
I think the Oscar crowd that year was not as strong as
No,
2008.
the Oscar crop was weak.
Yeah, like the year before in the Oscar crop was There Will Be Blood and No Country, which frankly is just like
It's a coin flip. It's not fair.
yeah. It's like
So the Oscars broadcast of 2008
it
was
was
a real
awesome.
banger, too.
Yeah.
Twilight?
Was that 08?
Apparently, wait, I'm making sure. I think that was 08. Listen, like it or not, that movie was influential.
All right. Well, listen, the Dark Knight.
So like, let me finish my relationship with the Dark Knight.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Listen, I grew up reading comic books. I was a big comic book fan growing up. I thought everything that I think was thought about this movie then, I was in total agreement. However, this movie in my mind has not aged well. And every time I rewatch it, it's just like part of the sheen just wears off. And to the point where I was just like, I distinctly remember texting Clint like last night when I got home from work. I was just like, damn it, I have to watch the fucking Dark Knight right now.
That's right.
And it was just
this is how I win.
like, yeah. and then I put it on, and I was like,
I am for sure more in your camp, Cal. Because I remember everybody just losing their minds over it, and to an extent, like rightfully so. Like and I think that's why like it gets a lot of credit for proving that you can do something else with the superhero genre. Like, oh, it's a grown-up thing. It's like, no, it's just a good movie. Like, point is, everybody was losing their minds over the Dark Knight. I bought into it to a certain degree, but I was always the guy like, yeah, it was fine. And everybody's like, you asshole, it was great. I'm like, well, hang on. Like, yeah. And so like, I will say that in the years since, and I completely agree with you, Cal, every time you go back to it, or every time I go back to it, I care for it less and less.
No, but I really feel like the narrative overall has shifted. Like, I'm still very much in the camp of this is the best superhero movie of all time. One of the best movies I've ever seen. One of the best movies of the 21st century. I don't give a shit. Come for me in the comments. But like, I don't think you guys are totally off base with the popular sentiment. I think its stock has gone down.
And why do you want to kill me? I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
can I ask you a question?
Huh.
When you watch clips, like when you watch like Dark Knight clips on the internet,
Are they all Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
they are though, right?
They are.
Because like,
Yeah.
listen, we are.
Yeah.
I am getting ready to probably on the balance on this movie for the remaining part of this podcast. But like, I want to say unequivocally right now that like Heath Ledger's performance is incredible and worthy of all of the praise that it gets.
I'm going to say, yes, it is the best part of the movie. Yes, it elevates the movie. And yes, I don't think it would get half the praise that it did if it didn't have Heath Ledger. But I also push back on the idea that he's the only good part of it. I think the script is very tight. I think it moves very quickly. I like what they do with the character of Batman. I like that it's still a comic book movie. I like that it's not above being a comic book movie. And it's still a really good crime thriller.
It's a 2.5-hour movie.
And
it's
not the first.
It's not the word I would use.
It's the first 2.5-hour movie that I've ever seen in my entire life where I was like, you know what, justified. Like, I hated long movies growing up. I love Lord of the Rings now. I cried in the theater because my butt hurt because it was so long, and I would not tolerate any movie over 2 hours.
Oh, not because Frodo got on the boat at the end?
Yeah, well, also that, obviously.
It was. Yeah.
But like I had such little tolerance, and I, as a 16-year-old, that was the first movie that was 2.5 hours that I saw that I was like, oh my God, that hooked me the entire time.
I will say, yes, I fully agree that this thing books. Like, it moves fast, but I think that's one of the biggest problems with it, is the pace of the movie. But my biggest problems with it anyway. For me, this is one of those movies that, like, the story of it for me is about all the little things that bug me. And it's like no movie is perfect, right? I mean, there's very few movies that don't have the odd little mistake or continuity errors or whatever, blah, 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 or little bits of movie logic that don't quite make sense. But whatever, they're all charming on screen. I don't really care about that. Like, this plot doesn't really make sense, but the rest of it it charms you in such a way where you look past it, right? Like, those are the good movies, the movies that you love and everything like that. For me, The Dark Knight is a movie that I cannot for the life of me get past all of the nonsense that it tries to pull. Like, all of the little things that like, I'm just not able to look past any of them. All of the things, like the first shot of the movie when they blow the window out to like zip line across to sneak in undetected to another building across the street. I'm like, you just shattered glass all over a street from 10 floors up. Like, this is how you're moving around undetected. And from the very first shot of the movie, I'm like, I don't buy any of this. You know, that wasn't necessarily the first time I saw it. I think this is a movie that it really does suffer in retrospect, because there have been so many other superhero movies that have sort of you know, if this movie walked so that other movies could run, you know, like there you get brownie points for that, but also that I don't know, I just don't like watching this movie.
That's fair. And like, I don't deny, like, we've been all in this industry for a while. I agree that, like, even movies that I like, if I have to write 17 articles about it, I'm kind of, like, burned out. And you've probably talked more about The Dark Knight than I have about a lot of movies.
We can dig into this later, but, like, I do think that Batman Begins is just better than The Dark Knight.
I like Batman
for
Begins.
a handful of reasons. I don't know that it's got anything specifically to do with any brilliant moments or anything that's, you know, filmmaking wise better or worse. The thing that I like better about Batman Begins is that it doesn't sort of try to have it both ways, right? Like The Dark Knight was trying to show like the prestige superhero, you know, this grounded, we shot it in Chicago on location kind of vibe to it, but also like narratively it's not grounded even a little bit. And like it never adds up to me. Batman Begins was you know, that Gotham was you know, all set extensions and VFX and also the Scarecrow was nuts and like that kind of, and it felt like it was all pulling in the same direction. And this movie feels like it's trying to do two things at once and it's not succeeding at either, I think.
Yeah, I also just don't think that Batman Begins gets enough credit too. Like like you were saying earlier, Clint, everyone talks about The Dark Knight and they say like this was like the first grounded, like gritty, realistic like did you forget that it was a sequel to Batman Begins?
It's a sequel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally a direct sequel. And I was one of the people who hadn't seen Batman Begins when I had seen The Dark Knight, which I don't think impedes your enjoyment of The Dark Knight really at all. But when I did go back out and watch it, I was like, why didn't I watch this? The Batman Begins rules.
I think like one of the things that this movie does really well is use homage and like pulls from other specifically crime movies and stuff like that to achieve some of the same dramatic effects as those crime movies have done just in a superhero movie. And I think that like superficial cutting and pasting of that stuff to this movie makes it feel especially at that time like a way stronger superhero movie that has come before it, because before, let's say even before Batman Begins, right? Like even before Batman Begins, it was Batman and Robin that kind of killed superhero movies for a while. And then like it wasn't until like X-Men and Spider-Man came out that they started to come back. And then like this shows like the gritty dark way, but like we'll get into the first scene. Like that opening heist scene is a pretty good heist scene on the surface, just really, really echoes Heat. Like it's just totally Heat.
It's totally Heat.
And like you know that saying like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Like this is very much like I'm gonna take Heat and I am going to adapt it to Batman. And that's exactly what he did. But to Clint's point, it's like the stuff that scratches on the surface, right? Like you got hung up on the window shatter. I got hung up on the grenades.
How has no one been talking about the cell phone sonar? That's the only thing that
we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But like the window shattering, that doesn't matter like at all in the grand scheme of things. And most movies where stuff like that happens, like I've probably said this on the show. It's like if you're getting hung up on that, this isn't your movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is not my movie because I'm getting hung up on that
Well,
stuff.
that's the thing. Like, you can poke as many holes as in this movie as Swiss cheese, but like at the end of the like, I personally like, and you're not wrong, but it's like I'm just gonna sit there and enjoy it. Coco Melon.
But they're just like, we don't have room for zip ties, but we gotta like keep the hands of anybody in the bank tied. So it's like we don't have zip ties, we have hand grenades. And like after they drive away, what happens with those hand grenades? Now you could probably make the argument that they're fake, but those people didn't know in the moment. But that like, and that is me thinking too much about this. It's just
exactly. You're not meant to think that much about it.
There's so many things. We'll get some more of those because I flagged a handful of those moments because that's like my issues with the movie kind of fall into a couple of buckets. And one is like there's some nuts and bolts things that are just not things that I enjoy in movies. And then the other thing is stuff like that's just so outlandish, but we're also trying to like keep enough credibility that this is like grounded and real and gritty and all this stuff. This movie had a big day at the nomination announcements, but a little bit of a quieter night at the actual Academy Awards. It's nominated for art direction, cinematography, editing, makeup, sound mixing, visual effects, all of the things that genre movies are allowed to get nominated for in 2008. Won for sound editing, and of course, Heath Ledger won posthumously for Best Supporting Actor. And again, to be clear, none of us are going to be making the argument that maybe he didn't deserve it.
Nope.
His Joker is hands down.
Yep.
I think it's the one thing the movie did right, but more than that, it's the one thing the movie does really well.
Yeah.
Is the Joker as a villain.
It's also crazy that the Joker has 2 Academy Award statues, and this is by far the one that is the better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It also broke some box office records that year. I mean, it was the biggest, highest grossing movie of 2008, which we've already talked about all the bangers that were in 2008. So it's not like it just coasted to that. It set the record for per screen averages that Spider-Man 3 had held for a minute. And it's all these other little things like quickest to 400 million and 500 million at like 18 days and 45 days respectfully. It was setting records for things like most money on a non-holiday Tuesday. Like,
oh, I love those stories. They're so stupid.
yeah, I know, right? Just about anything that they could track, they were doing it, and Dark Knight was blowing the records out of the water. It was the 4th highest grossing film of all time at that time for a minute, and also the first, like we said earlier, first superhero movie to cross $1 billion, which obviously that changed some things, or didn't change things necessarily so much as it, because like Kevin Feige already had his plan when they were making Iron Man, but like the viability of those plans became very, very clear thanks to this, I think. And then critically, of course, everybody loved it. So it's
Because it's not a superhero movie. It's a crime movie just with a superhero in it.
I do want to say for the record before we start getting like more granular about the movie.
That's what you need to like a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Then sure, it's a crime movie. That's fine.
I like that it's both. I like that it's unapologetically both. And I think people forget that when they talk about, like, when you rewatch it, you can see that it's clearly a comic book movie. I think the thing that I find most interesting about its whole legacy is that it literally changed the Oscars. That was the movie that made them expand the Best Picture field because The Dark Knight didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Yeah, to 10, which I think we'll talk a lot about whether the changes that The Dark Knight provoked were good or bad. I actually don't love the 10 movie Best Picture thing.
Of all of the Dark Knight legacy, that's the one I'm going to like. That's the one that least concerns me.
I don't know that any of 6 through 10, like, it's pretty obvious which ones don't have a chance to win.
Right, which is why I don't like it.
But also, like, I like that some of those movies get some extra recognition. You know,
Sure.
like some of those movies might get forgotten about by the time January, February rolls around. But if there's an Oscar nominee, like, we'll talk more about it, and then it'll help and all that stuff. So, like, if there are, that's one I actually don't mind. But I do think it is totally useless. Like, it's obvious who the also rans are.
I just still think it's crazy that despite the fact that it did get Oscar nominations, people were so mad that it didn't get a Best Picture nomination that it changed the entire freaking ceremony. Like, that's a legacy.
Just a little preview of our movie list section for later. It was in the top 10 Best Picture Oscar snubs list. It was, honestly, I think one of our very early, maybe like first 10 or so lists that we ever did.
It's just bizarre to get that many nominations and then not get a Best Picture nomination.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not a serious movie, right? It's a comic book movie,
right,
according to the Oscars. But like, I got nominated for every single award that genre movies were allowed to get nominated for.
Yeah.
In those days. So, like,
getting back to, the great Don Draper quote of, "That's what the money is for."
Shocking. You make $1 billion and you can start winning awards.
All right, so listen, why don't you give me a call when you want to start taking things a little more seriously?
Let's get into some brilliant moments. We've already talked about the opening sequence.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Which
remember,
I like.
do you remember when it aped the heist in Heat? You remember?
I don't think, to be fair, I don't think Nolan would deny that.
No, he was very forward about that.
Yeah, he was.
But I think that is also part of the narrative of legitimizing this thing as a superhero movie that transcended the genre. He's like, look, I took this from Heat, a good movie.
Yeah, a prestigious movie that you all like.
Yeah.
The reason that I actually really like the bank heist scene, in addition to it just being Heat, and I like Heat, so why not?
Just for the record, Jordan, the director of production and post, does not like Heat, and
Jordan,
he's been rigorously shamed this morning for that.
As he should be. Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really? I was rigorously shaming him for something else in a meeting earlier this morning too. He's having a bad day.
I need to find something else to shame Jordan for.
No, it's your turn.
The reason I actually really like this as an introduction to the Joker is because it goes against Nolan's worst impulse, which is the thing that he can't stop doing is telling and not showing. This is one of the few times, like one of those few big moments in his career where he is showing you the Joker and not telling you, like, this is the Joker, isn't he scary? Like, because you have that, like, opening shot where he's holding the mask, and then you kind of see him move about the scene, and then you see the makeup, and you're like, oh, yeah,
and
of course.
you meet him as we're watching his plan unfold, too. So
Yeah.
it's like you get some insight into the guy by watching this plan unfold.
It's also kind of a weird way to open this movie because I feel like the goons are talking in ways that no one else talks in the movie. They're full on like, you hear about this Joker? Like no one, then people don't talk about like that for like the rest of the movie.
Well, yeah, but that's a Batman trope because even like
it is.
Keaton's first Batman is like, you talking nonsense, man. There's no Batman.
I think the other thing this opening scene does is, I mean, number one, it was IMAXed to all hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that. This was the movie that like, did you see it in the theaters where it swapped aspect ratios? Did you see the IMAX version of this?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I bet I did.
You could see it. You could see it every now and then.
Thing. And this one of these first shots is when it like they blow out the window as they zip line through, like the camera pushes through the window and then tilts down, right? Like and that was specifically designed for people sitting in IMAX theaters, full stop, right? Like that's what that shot is for.
Let us not forget that those masks are just like kind of homages to the Kubrick film The Killing, because that's how they robbed the racetrack. You know, another thing.
Clown mask?
Yeah, the clown mask. Like another thing to be like, see? Like he admittedly
You're going to say it's good enough for Kubrick, but not for me?
He's admittedly stealing from the greats is all I'm trying to say here.
Oh, yeah. And again, he's fine with that.
Yeah.
I think at this point, you really did need to kind of legitimize
I agree.
superhero movies, and you needed to, no.
And I completely agree. That's like why in 2008, as like more of a comic book stan than I am now, I was just like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah. Well, it gets so much more comic booky after that. That's why I think this scene is so interesting, because it is really grounded. It is just heat. And then we get into full, like, ridiculous, logic-defying Bruce Wayne stuff. It's like, oh, his superpower is being rich, and don't worry about it. Just close your brain to this. But, like, this is just a real bank heist scene. And, I don't know. The fact that it opened with this is so funny to me in retrospect.
No, it is good. And one of the things that the whole movie does that I think really works for this scene is the pace of the edit. I think the pace of, and Lee Smith got nominated for an Academy Award for this movie, but the pace with which this movie or this scene is cut really works. Like, it's chaotic. There's that little sort of in the score in the background. Like this scene is kind of nails on a chalkboard by design, right? Like you're supposed to, but then it keeps that pace up for the rest of the movie. And I feel like this movie is cut within an inch of its life. Like there are no frames between Michael Caine talking in one scene and Gary Oldman talking in another. It's a pace that doesn't make sense for the rest of the movie. Like thematically and all of that stuff, stylistically, it makes sense for this scene, and I think it works really well, which is why I think this is an incredible scene to open the movie with, but potentially one that kind of, I don't know, was bad for the rest of the movie. To keep this pace up for the rest of the movie in scenes where stylistically it doesn't make as much sense, where scenes where I feel like you want to take a little bit of a breath, or there's information that's happening that you're just already off in the next scene and you don't have a chance to digest any of the, the grounded, realistic stuff that they're dealing with that the movie gets so much credit for, because you're already off, you're halfway into another scene by the time you realize that you're out of the scene before it. I think the pace of this scene is really good, and until they go to the next scene, and then it starts working against this movie, I think.
I dig it the entire time. But like for me, that's why I love Nolan movies. I think it is absolutely crazy that it's a 2.5 hour film that, doesn't give you ever a chance to breathe. That's why it blew my brain. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, this is 2.5 hours and I'm not bored at any points. I'm not paying attention at any point. I feel like that's why I can watch it so many times, and it just holds my attention the entire time. Obviously more so when Heath is on the screen, but even when he's not, like, I'm just constantly like, whoa, where are we going next? Like, I like that. That's why I like Nolan films in general.
The action set pieces are good, right? Like even like the next action set piece, like the parking garage with like the copycats, like that's also like fun. I mean, that's also fun until Batman has to start throwing punches. And then
You don't like this?
The Batmobile just like charges through the wall in the first bit of it, and it's like, where did that come from? They're on like the 6th floor.
Don't worry about it.
You know what? That
But also, this is another one of those things that's like, it's one of those little things I'm not going to get past. And the fact, just so hilariously unconcerned with property damage, to the point where like there's an intimidate mode in the car where he just blows up another part of the thing just to scare folks.
I'm sure someone has like racked up like how much property damage they do and how much money
he owns half the city. It's probably his parking garage.
It's a lot.
Probably. Yeah.
No, but like, and I really do love the way that Nolan edits action scenes. I mean, I don't want to talk about it too early, but another one of my favorite scenes is that car chase. That's like a 10-minute car chase, and oh my God, it moves. And it's the same reason I like Inception.
And anything with the tumbler in it, I am a total sucker for.
Yeah.
I love that car.
It's a good tool for making an action scene.
Yeah, unlike the bat suit.
It is stiff, man.
Like it's like hilarious.
You know, and they make a joke about it, right? Like, you want to turn your head.
Yeah, but you know what? Then in the scene later, like in the penthouse when he has to fight the Joker and stuff, he's still stiff. They could only he only could throw 3 swings, and they have to cut in between each swing to something else to just like they get like.
Well, that's, you know, you kind of have to think that's why they cut it that way.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Like,
yeah.
It's all cameras moving like this, just a little bit, and then like half following the action and cutting into the. Like it's because I bet the extras were sitting there, you know, in the background of the scene, going like, "This is Batman." Like,
I feel like though Batman has often had that problem in all his iterations. I actually think the most recent Batman did it better than most. It's one of the reasons I really like the 2022 Batman.
Yeah, you don't say. You really did like the 2022 Batman.
You can read my review on IGN.com. Synergy, baby. No, but like I think that has long been a Batman problem, to be fair.
Yeah.
Fight choreography's come a long way since 2008 too.
It has.
See also, and if we're going after synergy here, see also Cal's piece about John Wick saving Hollywood.
Yep.
527 counts of obstruction of justice. How do the defendants plead?
This isn't really a brilliant moment so much as it is another one of my small complaints.
Oh, I'm curious. I also have another complaint.
It's a complete lack of establishing shots early in the movie. I counted, and I could be wrong. I counted 5 establishing shots in the movie. And some of them are like kind of half shots. Some of them are clearly just for IMAX. But for the most part, and this first 20 minutes of this movie is so weird and breathless, and you're going from one location to the other without having a chance to kind of get your bearings or anything, which, like, again, if the point is, to make it feel chaotic and like you can't get your bearings, and that's what living in Gotham City is like and all that. It's like, I get that as a choice, but the result of what they did to me is they just made a confusing and exhausting movie. Like, and it wasn't like the disconnect is in the intent and what is actually happening to me. Like, if that was the intent of just like, here's what it's like to live in Gotham City, or I want it to feel chaotic or whatever, like that's the intent, great. It did not land for me at all. Like, it just feels jumbled.
My least favorite scene in this film is the introduction of Harvey Dent. I
like that scene a lot.
I hate that.
The courtroom scene?
Yeah. Where like just the hackneyed, like, let me take the gun and just like break it in half, and just like Corbin fought.
He didn't break it in half. He takes the clip out.
He broke it in half. The handle broke.
I don't think it did.
I think he took the clip out and then took the one out of the chamber and that thing. I don't think he broke it in half, but
I think he breaks the gun.
I think.
Okay. This is an unknowable fact. We can agree to disagree, but the bigger point of this scene, Cal, is,
he didn't. He doesn't need to be a tough. He could have just been the DA. Like, they could have DS.
Oh, but he wouldn't be cool then.
He's not cool. He's Two-Face.
Cool. He's a little cool.
No, he should have been a little geeky attorney that turns into Two-Face.
Completely disagree. I think they needed to make him the hot, cool, but also really good, like, hero guy.
Like, you know what?
He's kind of like, in a lot of ways, the central character of the movie, but we just forget about him because he's not as showy. Even despite this, he's still not as showy as Bruce. And
they also don't reveal that until the very end when Joker's like, no, this whole thing's been about Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
But I think to make him as stereotypically movie hero as possible is the point, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one thing that I think they did it right with Harvey Dent, because the whole point of the movie is Joker proving that he can break the best of us, like that's what they come around to at the end. Which
I don't think he needed to show. I don't think
you
Harvey
wanted him
Dent
to be
needed.
dorkier.
I just don't listen. The whole thing is like Batman's the physically tough one. I don't think Harvey Dent needed to be too.
I'm fine with. Then he needed to be hot, cool hero, and that's what they.
You could be hot and weak, all right? Like literally, Timothy Chalamet is making an entire career out of that.
We also need to believe that people believe later that he's the Batman, because that's a whole plot that he does where he takes the fall for the Batman, and I don't think you believe that unless he's like a big tough guy.
You think Aaron Eckhart is a big tough guy?
I am an Aaron Eckhart defender in this movie. Actually,
I don't
I'm
know.
a defender.
He's like
These were
he
the
looks like 6'4" and
these were the
210.
These were
like
the
he
two.
built.
These were the two best years of his life.
Aaron Eckhart was a big enough star, but I like that he wasn't like a huge A-lister at the time. I don't know. For some reason, I can't picture that many people in this role outside of Aaron
He
Eckhart.
fell into it. He's like another Tom Jane, a guy that came close, but just.
Yeah, I think he maybe doesn't have like the best representation. Because how do you not go on to have a huge career after this also?
I don't know. Maybe the movie wasn't very good.
Yeah. No, I like the Harvey Dent, and I think this is a cool intro for him because we do need to kind of believe that he's the hero that could be. Also, like, he's the district attorney. Like, he won, like, people like him.
So he knows how to disarm a guy?
Yeah.
Well, he just punched him in his face when
A man was holding a loaded gun in his face.
Yeah, but it was jammed, and he took his he was just standing there and waiting to get shot in the chest, and then the gun jammed, and then he acted. So like maybe that's something.
No, and I like the campy comic book moments. I like that it doesn't hide from itself in that regard. Which
I don't know. See, that doesn't qualify as a campy comic book moment for me. I don't think, because that's just like. That's cool. Like let's make Harvey Dent look cool, but that's like dad cool. Like it's like it's very paint by numbers tough guy, which is I think what they needed to do with him. I do think that, because also he needs to be like a romantic rival for Bruce as well, right? In all things that Bruce and Batman are, Harvey Dent needs to be the opposite.
They could have made him a tough guy in another way.
they could have made who? What?
Well, he stole Batman's girl. He's like.
Stole his girl.
Oh, listen, all I'm just trying to say is what happens if he tried to get mugged in an alley and like defended himself that way? And then you could get the analog of like he kind of successfully Thomas Wayne'd there.
Oh, is that what they should do with Two-Face? Is make a version where like he saves his wife and kid's life by getting mugged in crime alley?
That would be wild.
And then just like walks out of the alley and it's just like,
Oh, that's what you mean by a successful
choice.
Thomas Wayne. He
yeah.
doesn't die.
Yeah.
Like a bitch.
Somebody
Like that bitch Thomas Wayne.
Thomas Wayne, that bitch.
Yeah.
Just somebody get James Gunn on the phone. I need to make that happen.
We're giving these ideas out for free. My God.
I know. What other brilliant moments you want to talk about?
I don't want to prove your point, Cal, but so many of my scenes are Joker scenes. I don't want to prove your point. I don't want to do
talking
it.
about I'm going to make this
Rightfully
pencil
so.
disappear?
Yep,
That scene?
that's
Yeah,
the
that
next-
scene
Pretty
rules.
early. Yeah. It's like 20 minutes in.
I love that scene.
Yeah, it's who does
That
it?
scene's great.
Who among us? But it's where you get him like literally chewing, because he loves to like lick the scars in his mouth. Like
Yeah, I know,
chewing,
right? He's just
doing
he's like
that.
a horse with peanut butter in his teeth.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, come on. I think this is easily one of the most iconic scenes in the movie. Every time I see that pencil trick, I'm just like,
Yeah,
it's
great.
It's also, he's like, I think this scene is where he's at his funniest too, because he's not like, I think that was a complaint, was that like he's not funny enough to be the Joker, but there are so many little lines in the scene that make me laugh.
The I know a rat when I see one, and then that's
Yeah.
when the guy turns off the camera. Like all that stuff is funny.
Yeah, and oh my God, there's a moment where the guy is like, "You think you could steal from us and walk away?" And he's like, "Yeah." The way he said it is so funny.
I think this scene is incredibly effective at setting up the joke. Like we meet him watching his plan in the bank heist earlier, but like here's where we start to get to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really effectively and efficiently sets up like he's dangerous. Like he's clearly unstable and not afraid to do crazy shit. He's threatening, he's smart, he's all of the things. Like he's very capable and charismatic too. Like he's way more fun at that table than any of those other, central casting sort of thugs are.
And I think the way to one of my complaints about this movie is I think the Lau character is completely wasted, and I think he's just there to be small in the presence of the Joker.
Oh, I think he's a MacGuffin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, fully.
Yeah.
And this genuinely tries to do that. It just completely belittles Lau by being like, yeah, he's the dude in the screen. I'm in front of you and I just killed a dude, while also making a dumb joke. Also has some of my favorite line deliveries, the whole you're crazy and him being like, I'm not.
The way that he delivers that, there's such a depth there.
Yeah. He's indignant that he just called him crazy.
There's a real emotion there that he's kind of swallowing a little bit in that scene is my read on it. But to the idea of the Joker as the villain of this movie being far and away the thing that it does best, not have any backstory, to not have him explained, to not, it's the smartest thing that they could have done. Mm-hmm. And then to couple all of that with Heath Ledger giving this performance that hints at a depth that we clearly can't understand. Those two things work together so well that again, we've said it 3 or 4 times, there's a reason why this performance is so iconic. He is so good in this movie. And I've never been much of a Nolan guy. I feel like he's I think I've said this before. We talked about him in the Blade Runner episode, I feel for some reason.
Yeah.
He's a very arm's length guy for me. Emotionally, I don't think he ever fully digs in. And so and that's been always kind of been my disconnect. I don't really particularly care about the characters in his movies, which Heath Ledger and this performance is sort of using that sort of perceived weakness in Nolan's films as a real strength for this character. Which is he's one of the few characters in all of the Nolan verse that have really popped for me. So
I also just think it's refreshing, watching this in 2024 and feeling like everything has a prequel, everything is explained. There is we know everything about every character, just to have this character just pop up, and it's a character that we all know. Everybody knows the Joker. But we don't know this version. We don't know what we're about to get. And I think that's what makes the rest of the movie, in addition to the editing, so breathless. You don't know what this character's going to do next if it's your first time watching it.
He's excellent.
And I just it's so fun. I'm sure we'll talk about Heath Ledger for the next hour, genuinely. And I'm not here to say he's not the best part of the movie. It's just crazy to me because when you look back at conversations that were had when he was cast, notoriously everyone was very doubtful about his casting. And a lot of people didn't think the Joker should be portrayed at all because nothing could ever live up to
Nicholson.
Nicholson. Which I love Nicholson, don't get me wrong, but it's I can't believe anyone didn't think that you could redo that in some kind of way. It's such a different interpretation.
Well, they had the same conversation the next time they cast a Joker. How dare you?
They might have been right about the Jared Leto one.
Yeah. Well, you can't. They can't all be winners, but
hindsight is 20/20. But just I watched this movie and it's I can't believe
that's the comic book casting conversation forever, The Michael Keaton and they always get that. But what's another scene we want to talk about? When
they take Lau out of
the building.
Yeah, in Hong Kong, that scene is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not so much the fight in the building, but all basically I feel that's the first time that the IMAX camera really shines because it's just those those dusk building shots of Hong Kong, and it's just he's so small and the screen is just flying around and stuff like that.
2 of the 5 or 6 establishing shots that we actually get in the entire movie are
yeah,
designed for IMAX in this sequence.
Dude, do you know what the one thing you want to know, the most hilarious IMAX shot, the one that always got me the weirdest of why they did it? The establishing shot when Bruce Wayne gets picked up off of his yacht, right? It's a wide IMAX shot of the seaplane landing next to his yacht, and then it's only that shot, just that one shot, and then it cuts to the letterbox shot of Michael Caine being I think your plane's here.
And then Bruce being oh, is it? It's yeah, it's a massive plane. It just parked next to you. And also a boat full of people watching Bruce Billionaire Wayne dive off and swim to a shady smuggler's plane. And we're just going to do this in front of everybody? Is that the deal? Yeah. There's people working, the crew of the boat is there and
No, but like the yacht scene is also like some of the trash in this movie that I enjoy. Like it's so stupid and cheesy the way you see, the way that like Christian Bale perfectly diver jumps off the yacht.
So, I was watching it this time. I'm like, do you think that Bruce Wayne has like a Ghislaine Maxwell that's just like a woman that's responsible for like putting women on his boat?
Oh,
That's
God.
Alfred.
Yeah,
Alfred gets the women.
Is it Alfred?
It's Alfred.
Well, it's the entire ballet. He absconded with the ballet, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Because
that's
we find
right.
that
Yeah.
out.
That's it. That's what it was.
That's
Yeah.
where all the women were, yeah. And again, I bet Alfred organized that.
No, he did. He says, he's like, did you come up with the cover story? He's like, oh, I got one. Oh, I got one, Mr. White. And like, and then we cut to Harvey and Rachel walking up for their date to the ballet. And somebody has taped a newspaper article to the door of the ballet saying Bruce Wayne stole the ballet.
That's it.
It's
And
canceled.
Then it cuts to the
It's like-
one. Then it cuts to the one IMAX shot of the plane landing.
I love this stupid
It's
movie.
eight
It's so silly.
seconds of IMAX, and then we're back to
I want to think it's like, oh, we don't have the time to switch out the cameras on the helicopter, so just shoot it in IMAX. And then someone forgot to crop it.
I do have a non-Joker scene in this mist that I actually do really like.
Yes.
Where
upon-
people talk, or is it just action scenes? Because all this movie is
People
to me is-
talk. Oh no, it's the restaurant. It's where Harvey and Bruce first meet. And then you have the line that now is a little cheesy, but I think it kind of popped off at the time.
No, it's a good line.
It's a good line. Like you either die a
line.
hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It's a good line.
Yeah.
And one that I say still a lot. And I don't care. You can cringe at. I am cringe, but I am free.
So you know what I was thinking about there, right? That's a Caesar joke, right? And all I think about is how like critical Caesar was in the plot of the Megapolis film.
This is my other hot take about this movie that I think everyone will disagree with, but it's related to this scene. I like Maggie Gyllenhaal in this movie as Rachel, and here is why. She does not seem to fit in this scene. Like, everyone is doing over-the-top comic book caricature bullshit, and throughout the entire movie...
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This Russian
Dude,
ballerina.
by the way,
doing-
why is a Russian ballerina defending democracy?
Because you can... she
she's
contains
just
multitudes.
enjoying her trip to the East Coast, man.
Yeah.
She is flirting real hard with a public servant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay. I do think this is a good scene in that it's on the nose, but not in an off-putting way. Like, it says everything that the movie is about. Just say the title, and then we'd be done. Like.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is ultimately a movie about three people. It's about Joker, Bruce, and Harvey. And, we got the introduction to Joker, which, how we discussed, it sets up everything we come to learn about that character. This scene does the same for Bruce and, well, mostly Harvey, really. I like the cheesy back and forth dialogue, and I like Maggie Gyllenhaal just sitting there just looking annoyed.
That's a great point about her not fitting in this scene. I remember that was part of the conversation when the movie first came out about like, oh, thank God we got rid of Katie Holmes. I was like, Katie Holmes wasn't.
No, I liked Katie Holmes too, by the way. Yeah.
wrong with Katie Holmes.
She
She
was
was
fine.
not. She wasn't bad.
No, people did say that though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was the whole thing. They were so glad, and I was like, I don't think that Maggie Gyllenhaal was any necessarily better or worse, on the whole.
I think people are hard on her because she comes across as very normal, which I think this movie needs because you have the three people that I just named being full on comic book caricatures, and she's just a girl, and that's probably why Harvey and Bruce like her so much.
How about, are we ready for? I'm just gonna keep asking, and you guys keep telling me no if there's something else we need to talk about. But are we ready for the convoy chase?
I feel like we do need to mention the why so serious monologue. Again, we could sit here and talk about forever just how good Heath Ledger is in this movie because you can talk about it forever. You can go line by line.
We can talk about the. Do you want to know where I got these scars as a motif?
Yeah,
Right?
which is
As a
great.
runner.
And I think it's a wink to what we were talking about earlier, how like everything needs to be explained in moviedom now. It's like, yeah, you think I'm explaining it to you, but you don't know anything.
Yeah, it's almost like he's doing his part as the villain that's monologuing, like in the same ways like The Incredibles made fun of. You got me monologuing.
Yeah.
It's like we're doing that, but like I'm taking the piss out of it too. Like I'm making up a new story about my scars every time, and like it fits with the character and what they're doing with him as a villain and him as in his role in Gotham City, and as opposed to how familiar we are with. Like Batman and Bruce Wayne in general, like. He is more his origin story than I think any other superhero. that defines him so hard.
Oh yeah.
He's so clearly
That's a
traumatized
good- yeah.
by it. And then so to put the Joker opposite him and he's making up a new origin story every time. Like it's clever.
And just like the pitch work that Heath is doing with his voice in this scene, like the way he goes from high to low, it's just like I'm sure has been studied and should be studied, what he's doing with his voice here. And I can't believe he's like Australian. Like that's, again, like he's already doing an accent. And no, before we get to the car chase scene, the other one I do like is the party.
Yeah, where the Joker shows up.
Lots of little things I like in this. Obviously, Heath's amazing. I like his interaction with Rachel. I like the standoff between him and Bruce, and the very poor choice of words line is excellent. Again, he's kind of funny sometimes.
I am glad that he called the old man who's, by the way, like Gotham in general needs to come up with a better word for criminals than scum. Like how many like under 5 actors in this movie say something about like, we don't have to be afraid of scum like you. Like the old guy says it here.
Or like thugs. I think he says thugs or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the old guy says it here. The guy, the fake Batman says it in the video later, and like everybody's just like has this weird notion of, well, you don't have to, we can stand up to you, and it's just like, all right,
Can you,
scum,
brother?
Yeah.
No, but I love how stressful this scene feels. I really love, like, not only Heath's performance, but the way that the movie constantly frames the Joker as this, like, just very scary dude. And, like, I feel like we're always at the mercy of him just through the way it's shot.
I also think that Maggie Gyllenhaal really sells this scene. Her reaction to it and just the squirminess trying to get away, but also
like keeping it cool.
Being planted and keeping it cool, and like, you know, just in terms of what it takes to actually stand up to scum like you, as opposed to that old rich dude who's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm better than you. But like, her selling this scene to me is like what makes it not repetitive, right? Him telling another story about his scars. You know, I think that's on her.
I also love what they do with the scar story motif, because if you remember in the past scene, the Gamble, I think his name is, the other bad guy who, in the first scene with the Joker, he establishes that he knows that Gamble's grandma is like needs money or is sick or something. So he tells a story about family. And in this scene, he knows that Rachel is Harvey's squeeze, and so he tells a story about love. I think that's such like an interesting screenwriting choice that I feel like not enough people take note of. This character was so smartly written, like in addition to being incredibly portrayed.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm one of the ones that didn't read it that way. I never noticed that. That's a really good point.
Also, another thing that I like about this scene is Bruce doing the Batman voice as Bruce. It just makes me laugh. I don't know why.
He's got Harvey.
We haven't done enough of the Batman voice this episode.
The Batman voice is so.
Where's Rachel?
The Batman voice is so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
to the point where I think Pete Holmes as Batman is like my third favorite Batman now. Like it's so just on the face silly, this voice. Mm-hmm. That like, and the way that Pete Holmes like makes fun of it so perfectly. Yeah. I'm just like, see, you get it. You get it more than they get it, you know? Like,
it's just such a choice to have him doing that. And also, like, sometimes you can't understand him. Like, especially in the last scene where he's fighting with the Joker, you straight up can't hear what he's saying.
When he's anytime he's out of breath. Like, it goes into just clearing your throat at some point, which is.
I think Christian Bale, I like his Bruce Wayne, admittedly not a big fan of his Batman.
His Bruce Wayne to me in this one is way more vacant. This is another thing we can talk about this.
Yeah.
But like, I by design, like, I don't mind that as the choice of him. Like, he plays his like, I'm a rich dude who doesn't like, yeah, I own the place, bring another table. Like, that energy is much more on the surface of his Bruce Wayne in this one than I think the other ones. Batman and Bruce Wayne as a character in this movie, he doesn't do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He's working on a goal that he wants, and he's, you know, to be able to retire, essentially, for Gotham to not need him anymore. And he doesn't work out, but he doesn't change or alter his trajectory or any of that at any point in the movie. Like, this is another one that he's the third most interesting part about his own movie. Fourth, probably.
Yeah, I think he gets his emotional arc in Rises. This might be me coping too hard with it, because you're not wrong, but the way that I see it is I don't actually mind that he's a little emptier in this movie, because to me, his entire arc in this is he has no control. He doesn't know what to do. So the way I see him kind of just getting to the next thing, I think that's almost kind of a human response to the way that Joker takes control of the situation. I don't know if that makes much sense, but
He's always reacting instead
yeah,
of
he's
like,
always reacting. It's
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it. He's a more passive character in this, because we've talked before, and I agree. Like I don't think every character needs some revelatory, earth-shattering arc to qualify for being in a movie, right? Like we don't necessarily need that. But I think with how passive he is, because even all of his detective work, and like maybe we can talk about this as part of the funeral procession scene, because all of his detective work that includes cutting a bullet out of a wall, getting another setting up a massive, crazy techie firing range in his little lightbox room, and then like reassembling a bullet to find a fingerprint that he like. That it's such nonsense. It's such movie shorthand nonsense. The thing that makes it more nonsense for me is that it was a setup, right? Like that thumbprint was placed there by Joker, who I guess knew that he would somehow find a thumbprint on a shattered thing that would allow him to show up at that guy's apartment during the procession at the exact time that egg timer goes off, which the egg timer is timed to when they're giving the 21 gun salute for the police commissioner, so that it can be a distraction so that they can spin around. It's no, just no. The answer to that is no. Like logically, no, thank you. Like, and so like, that's another part of. It's like, yeah, there's my fingerprint. It's like, what? No, how?
I will say all the tech stuff in this movie is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like I'm as much a fan and a champion of movie shorthand as you will find. I think there's a language in movies that we all understand at this point, 100 and whatever years into having movies, and like use it. Absolutely. We don't need to spend screen time like as reinventing wheels for every movie. Like, but this, I feel like this movie just abuses the privilege of film shorthand, like, and that's one of the things that bugs me about it.
But the thing is, I feel like we all bought into it. I still buy into it. I don't care. Like, we were just along for the ride. And if you want to poke holes in this movie, you can do it all day. Like, I'm sure there's YouTube videos that are like every plot hole in The Dark Knight, and it's probably 45 minutes long.
Just looking at the runtime of this episode, we have been doing it all day at this point.
We have. But no, and like Jim Gordon faking his own death. Like, there's too much going on in the funeral scene. But gosh darn it, am I entertained?
But even Jim Gordon faking his own death is it seems to be part of Joker's plan, because ultimately that's what gets him captured, which is also part of his plan, so that he could be in the cell with a guy that he planted C4 in his belly with. Like, it's, I don't know. The fact that everything that happens in this movie is intricately designed by Joker, a guy who professes to not have schemes later. Like when he's like giving Two-Face that rally talk in the hotel, he's like, they're all schemers and plotters, and not me. I'm just a dog chasing.
Oh, he's very much a schemer.
You planned this whole thing.
He's the biggest schemer to ever scheme.
Yeah, exactly.
He
Not only
literally.
are you a schemer. Your schemers are impossible. Like maybe that's what it. Maybe it was just a quirk of fate that all that stuff happened. But
I think another one of his famous lines is like, "I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve." Like, yeah, because you're a schemer, brother. Like, you've spent this entire movie ahead of the curve.
But I guess the counter argument to that is that's just what Harvey needed to hear to get him moving in the right direction and all that stuff. Like, okay.
You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan. Even if the plan is horrifying.
Are we ready for the convoy sequence now?
We can
talk about the convoy sequence now.
Okay. What do you guys think about it?
Sick chase, bro.
Sick chase, bro. Yeah.
Sick chase, bro.
What you expected?
I think it's
You wanted more?
No, I didn't have anything prepared for it. I just wanted you. There was a video that made the rounds years ago. I think it was on Vimeo, actually. Like, I'm sure it made it to YouTube at some point, but like, there's this guy that broke down like all the nuts and bolts of this scene in terms of like how it breaks cinema convention. I think the way he referred to it was the grammar, like cinematic grammar or something. So like the number of times that the continuity line is wrong, or that all of a sudden trucks are driving the wrong a different direction than they were in the shot previous, and like his argument is that it's just like shoddily made, you know, like it breaks all of the most basic movie making rules, which, you know, on the surface it does, right? Because you can't argue that like in one shot the truck is driving this way and the very next shot is driving this way. Like that's just, it happens. So it's like, and the conversation around, I think this sequence more than any in the movie is kind of what the movie is to me. And we talk about it all the time, like how much credit you want to give anything. Like I said, I've always found Nolan's work to be very sort of clinical. But the convoy sequence is a really good example of it. Maybe it is a bad sequence or whatever, but like I don't. Nolan is such a nuts and bolts guy. Like I don't think that the sequence got away from him or anything like that. Like, I don't think he accidentally just made an incompetent sequence. Like he's too in control for that, right? But like, you know, just for argument's sake, maybe it is like a bad sequence that they just made up. You know, or maybe it's a choice to make the viewers as confused and disoriented as Dent is in the back of the truck and all that stuff. But like, again, for me, it's an issue of like, there's intent and there's actually pulling it off in a way that is like communicated effectively. And that's why like Nolan's stuff and this sequence in general just doesn't resonate with me. Like to me, it looks more like the weird, confusing mess than it does like, ooh, I feel like I'm in Harvey Dent's position here.
I totally see what you mean by like in some shots they're going from frame right to left, and some shots they're going from frame left to right, right? Like it's like crossing the line. That doesn't really bother me as much because I know like the conflict going on, right? It's just like these trucks against like a GDP, like a GPD vehicle. So you kind of know that they're all going against each other. But like, I think this is just a really, really good car chase. And it's pretty impressive that like they filmed all of this like underground, and no one talks about the use of miniatures in this. Like there's a decent amount of use of miniatures in this as well. And like the fact that like you can't really tell the miniature shots from the live action stuff is really a testament to like, to your point, how in control Chris Nolan is in the directing of this stuff.
I watched the scene. Yeah, it is very confusing, but I do think it's kind of what you were saying, Clint, about you're kind of supposed to be confused, and this is how you would feel at a car chase. I also think there's some really smart use of lighting, where it's purposely obscuring things at times, and you're kind of seeing what you're supposed to see. And it's also very long. Yeah. It's like 10 minutes long, the whole thing.
No, it's a big chunk of the movie. But I mean, the other thing that it doesn't do though, like it doesn't root itself in any one perspective either. Like if this were a chase about how Harvey Dent feels, like they don't spend a ton of time with Harvey Dent. Like if the point of it being chaotic and confusing,
I see it less from the perspective of Harvey. It doesn't feel like a chase about Harvey Dent. Well, exactly. And to me, it's about
the
Bruce.
Argument of it's supposed to feel chaotic and confusing. Like I don't know who I'm supposed to be relating to either. Visually speaking, like there's some cool stunts, there's some cool miniature work, there's some cool we're getting to the truck flip here in a second. Like all of that stuff is visually very iconic, looks great in a trailer, but like it for some reason it never fully coalesces.
I don't think it's Harvey that you're supposed to be with. I think you're supposed to be with Bruce, and especially with one of the most iconic shots of the movie where he's riding towards Joker, and Joker looks really big in that moment, and then of course he. Oh,
that's a separate moment. Like that moment's incredible.
I don't know. It does it for me. I'm always on that. I'm like, and I'm not even a huge car chase gal, but I watch this car chase.
Love car chases.
And it's a great truck flip. Come on.
Everything that has flipped end over end since is like, it's a very long list.
Also, this scene looks expensive as hell. I know this movie was expensive. I think it was like, what was the budget? Like $150 or something?
Honestly, it's kind of like a mid-budget blockbuster now.
Yeah, but at the time it was not. I think it was like something like 180 million or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did they spend 200? They probably didn't spend.
I don't think they did.
It's between 180 and 185.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's an expensive ass movie for 2008.
You know what I really like? I like that Debo from Friday is the convict that throws.
Good scene too.
That throws the thing out of the window.
It's a great scene. Well, let's talk about the ending, because there's more awkward, difficult to track fighting that takes place in that building that's under construction. The real star of the ending is the everybody on the boats, right? Like, which again is another whole like part of his plan, part of his scheming that he doesn't do. Between Teeny Lester and the guy on the other boat that's like, well, nobody wants to get their hands dirty. Like that entitled worm I hate him immediately. And I love it. Like that's such a good quick performance. It's just like, oh, you trash. Like get out of here. Like he's such a, that guy and you've encountered that guy in public.
Dad?
Like you've been behind him and no, but like that guy that you've been behind that guy in line at Starbucks or something who's mad. At
no one wants to be the bad guy, so I'll be the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A weirdly perfect little performance in the middle of this end.
Oh yeah, both of them. Both, yeah, like you said, Debo and no, but the reason I love the boat scene so much is I point back to the boat scene every time I talk about superhero or comic book villainy, comic book stakes, because I think, not to go off too much a tangent on things like the MCU, but I think one of the reasons why the MCU has gone downhill recently is because the stakes are too big. Because we're in the multiverse saga, and when the universe is at stake, nothing feels like it's at stake. But I'm at the edge of my seat every time I watch the scene, even though I know how it plays out, because those stakes feel so real. It's not the universe. It's not half the galaxy. It is a few dozen people on some boats who are being tested by their morality. And I think we've really lost that when it comes to, comic book villainy and what makes a villain scary. It's why the Joker is so effective. It's because, like, that's real. That's tangible. I just think the boat dilemma is so good. And the fact that at the end of the day, it's like the one little bit of optimism in this movie, because this movie in a lot of ways is very cynical. The Joker succeeds in his mission to take down Harvey Dent. But he can't really take the soul of Gotham. And I like that little bit of optimism, I think. And yes, they explain it to you. Like Batman's like, you couldn't see, not everyone's terrible as you. Not that we could understand it.
You got to watch it with the subtitles.
No, I love that little bit of optimism. It's a nice little touch in what is otherwise a pretty cynical movie.
Well, it's funny, you can cynically watch that sequence too and just roll your eyes at the whole thing and just like, oh, so the real hero is like there's still good in people. And I think that was one of the few knocks on the movie I remember when it came out was just like, oh, whatever, like they should have just punched each other until Batman won was kind of the sentiment. But anyway, no, it is and I do really appreciate the stakes of it, because you're absolutely right. Like if you can relate in any way to the stakes, besides like, oh, time's going to unravel. Like,
yeah, no, that's not real. But like, I believe one of those boats will blow the other one up.
And somebody's going to feel bad about it if they do it.
Like that little worm.
And this is all like juxtaposed against one of what I think is actually one of the more creative and better shots in The Dark Knight, which is the Joker's like suspended, like talking about how like evil men are. And the camera is just kind of like rotating, and it's just like acknowledging that the world is kind of turned upside down, but it's like right side up in like his perspective.
And we're like, he's been this guy that we're supposed to be, at odds with the entire movie. But then here we are, like, here's where you're going to be in his shoes for a minute. Like, we're going to understand his perspective. And so for the camera to rotate like that is
it's great.
Legitimately,
it's a nice little
really
touch.
brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's also where he has this line that's kind of like baffled me in years prior, which is where he says, like, I think you and I are destined to do this forever. Like, do you think that was obvious sequel bait? Or I don't think it was.
I don't know that it was. I mean, it makes sense for their dynamic and the things that he's, because I fully believe him. He's like, I don't want to kill you. Like, this is.
Oh, yeah.
That's the sentiment, right? Like, it's just, they're two sides of the coin. And that's the dynamic of Batman and Joker, like, for as long as they've been around, right? So, like, I mean, it might have been.
Yeah.
But, I think there's also a funny way to read that line in terms of, like, how, this being at the front edge of our current superhero phase of moviedom. Like, no, it's just going to be superheroes and supervillains forever. Like, we're going to do this forever.
Wow,
and
yeah.
then they went and made $1 billion, and to date we have done it forever.
And we're still doing it, huh?
Forever.
I'm stepping backwards a little bit here, but we haven't really talked too much about the Two-Face transformation. I do like how this movie eventually gets there. I think the only thing I really wish is I wish Two-Face was less CGI. I wish they made it a little gnarlier practically, because it just looks cartoonish when I feel like it really should make you queasy.
That's probably just a PG-13 thing, right?
That might be what it is.
Movie.
Yeah,
And
I think if they made it
like,
really gnarly, they might have lost that PG-13 rating that they were kind of riding the
They probably
line of.
hedging their bets because like the idea that there's not just goop everywhere is,
Just saliva
that's silly.
pouring out the side of his.
Yeah, it's just like everything is just, even when he like at one point he takes a shot and then he like wipes his chin and like nothing really happens. It's like, I feel like he should have just like torn some muscle off of his chin while he was doing that. But I do like that when Gary Oldman first sees it, that we don't see it. Like we get that one moment of Gary Oldman reacting to it. You get that first gut reaction of like, oh, this is gonna be horrible.
Yeah.
So there's even a little spike in the score too. There's like a little boom kind of hit.
The whole
But
hospital
if we're talking
scene,
about the hospital,
I mean, again, that's
it
to my
blowing up
that's
is one of the coolest shots, I think. And the
big
fact
explosion, very cool.
Big explosion, very cool.
Into it.
You can mess up a big explosion, but it's harder than some other things.
And again, to my point earlier about the boats and the stakes, like blowing up a hospital, what's more monstrous than that? Like,
Do we need to talk any more about the end, the other end? Because the movie ends like 4 times.
it doesn't.
But it's got a couple of endings. The last end that we get is the showdown with Dent and Commissioner Gordon's family. Mm-hmm. When Batman shows up to breathlessly try to talk him out of it again.
I think the only purpose of it being there is to show that the Joker succeeded and that Harvey's a bad dude now. Maybe another hot take. I like the actual ending of the movie. I like the on the nose. He's not the hero we deserve. Like I don't know. It works for me.
Him rattling off a bunch of different, like he's got a thesaurus open for what the Dark Knight is.
He's like
Kinda
trying to fill the
rattles off a
word
couple
count
of
of the
different
essay.
synonyms for the Dark Knight. Like, he's just trying to land on one that sounds right.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
He's ripping.
just say the title.
It's a perfect they said the thing moment too. It's great.
They said the thing. Yeah.
But I think it's a good capstone. I think it closes the book on the thesis that it was telling the whole movie.
Do we have anything else? Shall we move on to movie lists?
We haven't really talked about the interrogation scene either. I think that's one of the more iconic ones in this movie.
We can talk about that scene in the juxtaposing it with the end with Dent, right? Because they're similar functionally, right? Like they serve similar purposes in that like here's how it's Batman against one of these villains. And granted, Gordon is there kind of off to the side in both scenes too, but like this is one that's memorable because of Heath Ledger. But also, like if you pick it apart, like it does what it needs to do, and that's about it. Like I think it's a scene that's like narratively very functional, doesn't necessarily do anything wrong. Heath Ledger elevates the living crap out of it. And then by the end, you get to this thing where narratively it does what it needs to do. It wraps up the story in its place in the runtime of the film. But also you forget about it because I don't think it's just because Heath Ledger's not there. But like functionally, they do more or less the same thing. Like here's the dynamic between Batman and Two-Face versus here's the dynamic between Batman and Joker.
I think what I like about this scene, though, in addition to Heath being incredible, is I really do feel like so much of this movie is working in favor of making the Joker this iconic character.
No, it is. I mean, and it shows Batman going a little crazy.
It's great because you just have him hitting the Joker because he doesn't know what else. He doesn't have anything else. Like all he has is his strength, and the Joker doesn't care. It's great.
Never start with the head. The victim gets all fuzzy. He can't feel the neck. See?
All right, let's talk about movie lists. We have predictably talked about The Dark Knight a ton on the channel over the years. We, of course, did all the shows we've ever done had a Dark Knight episode between things you didn't know. Homemade Movies did 2 different scenes, the truck flip and the pencil trick scene. 8-Bit Cinema, of course, did one back in the day. Got a A really interesting piece that our pal Siddhant Adlaka wrote about comparing the ending of this movie to the ending of the Batman.
That was a really good piece.
And somebody here has written about Nolan and Batman at least a couple of times in some art of the scenes or some practical effects lists, I would imagine.
Yeah, I did a whole video on the Tumblr chase on Batman Begins. Did I do any? Oh, you know what Nolan I did in practical effects? It was the hallway fight in Inception.
That's a great fight.
Yeah, it's the rotating hallway.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, it was on the top 10 best picture snubs, which is, like I said, one of our earlier lists. And then the Joker was on top 10 movie villains of all time.
Of course.
Heath Ledger's Joker. Batman got a shout in top 10 heroes of all time. And there've been a handful of others. Like if you search The Dark Knight on our channel, like there's a bunch of mentions all over the place. I did a whole big thing about Nolan and how he uses time in his movies and mentioned it in there, but it's been around.
Honestly, we have it pretty well covered. Like, I didn't doubt that we have talked a lot about The Dark Knight on CineFix, but yeah.
Shall we Torf?
That's Torf.
Oh, great.
True or false? Blood is never seen on screen in the film.
Outside of the pillow?
Well, I'm going to say false because you can't say outside of the pillow.
Okay, so we talked about the pillow outside of the pillow.
Yeah, so outside of the pillow, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say true.
Okay.
Is the pillow
we're
the
not counting
only...
the pillow?
Yeah.
We're not counting the pillow.
I don't think there's any semblance of violence that shows any kind of blood whatsoever.
Okay, yeah.
There's a scene where he stitches himself up.
I don't think there's blood in it.
Well, there must not be blood because he just straight up puts a white shirt on. That's another thing that bugs me. That he didn't put a bandage on anything, but he just put a white shirt on over all of those bruises, like he's not going to bleed through that shirt. I mean, I guess I'll go true. There's no blood because both examples of blood that we brought up, you're like, well, no, but aside from those. So I'll go true, just so I can get the question right, even though I feel like maybe the question is wrong.
I know. I tried to save it at the last minute because we talked about the blood on the pillow. But there are 3 occasions of blood.
Okay.
So yes, one of them is the pillow. Yes, one of them is the arm after the dog attack.
Is one of them when he's beating up Joker in the interrogation room? He's got a little blood?
No. It's the third one is that when the civilian Batman, the one who's hanged, there's some blood on his face. Okay. There's not a lot of blood. Surprisingly bloodless movie.
Not a lot of blood. PG-13. You can be violent as all hell, but you just so long as we don't see, because even William Fichtner gets hit with a machine gun in the opening scene, and he doesn't bleed.
In the famous words of Quentin Tarantino, Hollywood doesn't have a problem with blood; they just have a problem with red.
We talked about that in our Kill Bill episode.
A lot of callbacks this week.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about a lot of movies we can call back to. All right, I cheated a little bit on that first one, but Torf number 2. It's the first film shot with IMAX to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Cinematography. True or false?
True.
Yeah, true.
Uh-huh.
This was like the first one where this was like a real big selling point of it.
The first film shot with IMAX to win the Academy Award for Best Cinematography was Dunkirk.
So after he abandoned Wally Fitzer and got Hoyt Van... What's that dude's name?
Hoyt van Hoytema?
Yeah. That's like his go-to DP now.
Dunkirk looks great.
I love that movie.
I do. I love Dunkirk.
I went to that.
It's my favorite Nolan movie.
It's up there. I think people don't talk about it enough. It's a good
I
movie.
agree with you.
It's good. I think it's one where like the form and function of Christopher Nolan is all pulling in the same direction. It really works.
I went into that movie wanting to hate it because,
Yeah.
fun fact, I hate Interstellar. Like,
It's not one of my favorite Nolans. I'm actually not going to fight you on
I
that.
just loathed that movie, and I was just like, I hate this movie. I'm sure this next one is going to be awful, and I was just like, great, Christopher Nolan is going to do like the most overdone genre of all time, World War II movies. I sat there and I was like, holy shit, this is incredible.
Uh-huh. And he does it
Yeah.
the Nolan way,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah,
works.
it's great.
Yeah. Torf number 3. Heath Ledger improvised his reaction to the hospital explosion scene after a mishap on set caused the timing of the explosions to malfunction. True or false?
True.
I want to say that at a time was true, but I feel like that's recently been retconned.
Cal's right.
Retconned or debunked?
Debunked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, that's a very,
I
very...
hadn't heard the debunk. That's
Yeah.
Yep.
I've always heard that story, but I didn't
We all
know I
heard
didn't
that
catch
story.
the
Wow, so
debunk.
I got the whole arc of that.
Yeah, you did. And there's a quote from Nolan here We rehearsed endlessly with Heath that morning. We walked him out, going through exactly what he was going to do. Chris Corbold calling the explosions where they would take place. We rehearsed it, I think, about 12 times. I think we literally walked him out, videotaped the rehearsal, and looked at it from different camera angles. So it was insanely rehearsed.
By the way, Chris
Good.
Corbold, another call out to a CineFix video, interviewed him for
You talked to him.
the tank chase in GoldenEye.
Look at the synergy this
Yeah.
episode.
I love that
we're
video.
Crushing it.
That dude is amazing. Just him talking about how to mail a tank.
Yeah, he had to mail a tank, which is incredible. He also,
That is fun.
I'm pretty convinced that he didn't realize that we were going to use the video footage.
Oh, 100%. He didn't look up once.
Because he was just like leaning up against his, like just talking like this the whole time. Like he was just on the phone as far as he knew.
All right, Torf number 4. For the first 4 days of scheduled shooting, Christopher Nolan screened 8 films for the cast and crew. True or false?
You know what they say. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Mm-hmm. And he wasn't hiding it, and I bet you can guess one of the movies because we've talked about it.
Is it Heat?
Uh-huh.
It's Heat,
It's
isn't it?
Heat.
Is
Uh-huh.
it Heat?
The other ones were Cat People.
What one? Schrader's?
42. Yeah.
Oh, no, not Schrader's.
The original.
The original. Yeah.
Also another movie from the 40s, Citizen Kane. Don't know if you heard of that.
What one's that one about? What number is that on your list?
We wonder if we have that on our list.
I don't think anybody does.
It's like the Batman.
That's a Dan-ass pick. I bet Dan has
Dan
that.
has that on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The original King Kong, Batman Begins, obviously. Black Sunday, A Clockwork Orange.
Black Sunday. Deep cut.
And Stalag, 17.
Stalag 17. Somebody's got that letterbox list somewhere queued up, ready to watch.
All right, last Torf.
Yep.
This was the first Batman movie to not feature Bruce Wayne in a tuxedo, to not feature Bruce Wayne's mansion, or live action or CGI bats.
True.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't thought about the bats thing, but yeah, no, there aren't any bats anywhere in this movie.
And considering that Wayne Manor burned down in the last movie.
Yeah, that's true.
True.
It's the first Batman film since Batman Returns to not feature Arkham Asylum.
Despite the fact that there's numerous like Arkham patients in this thing.
It alludes to it,
Yeah.
but yeah. That's it for Torf.
All right, well, who's your MVP?
I mean, Heath.
Heath.
This is Heath Ledger. Yeah.
Yeah, shortest MVP section ever. He really
Yeah, we run into these occasionally
Yeah.
where we're like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, we can move on.
Yeah. I just like, I think it's the most iconic performance of the 21st century so far. I don't think anything's topped it. I just, like, it's incredible.
I won't go that far.
I would
No,
go that far.
Well,
I mean,
at
like,
the very least, he's in the conversation.
Oh, no,
Like,
he's
if you're
absolutely-
gonna-
he's
if you're
absolutely-
gonna rattle off.
he's absolutely in the conversation, but like to say like, I drank your milkshake isn't also in that conversation.
It's in the conversation, but I don't think it's as iconic.
Uh-huh.
It's in the. I like it. I like a drink your milkshake, but I don't think it competes.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to argue in the comments too. Engagement,
No,
maybe.
I'm not gonna. Were you talking to me or are you talking?
We all go to the comment
Yeah.
section of our own video.
We're all just gonna go. We're just arguing with each other, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is the harder question where Nicolas Cage is gonna go?
No, I think that's actually kind of an easy question. That actually reminds me of what I was Googling.
Wait, what is your easy? Because I actually didn't think this was easy.
Oh.
Oh, I'm putting him in Harvey.
That's exactly where I was going.
I almost kind of had him at Bruce.
He would have been Superman. Just like mulleted Nicolas Cage as Superman is a Superman that I am sad I never really got to see in a real movie, not AI'd into
What?
The Flash.
No, it exists in
Right.
the movie.
It was a real movie that was really in theaters.
But it wasn't really Nick Cage.
It's true.
2008 Nick Cage. I'm trying to think of like 2008 Nick Cage movies, and it's just like I guess Bangkok Dangerous was one of his 2008 movies. Is he too old to be Harvey at that point?
I don't think so.
No, because I mean, National Treasure was 2004. Ghost Rider's 2007.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Ghost Rider's enough.
like
Yeah,
he's-
you're right.
I think it would have been good. I think like lurking underneath a regular guy, because he's like leading man handsome enough, like you
Yeah.
know, to pull that half of it off. But then like you know, to have a little bit more insanity kind of lurking underneath, I think would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah, it would have been a little less clean cut, I feel.
Although that might have undercut Joker's whole thing if it's like, no,
Right.
that guy's already got crazy in him and he's just kind of letting it out.
Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of a weird Aaron Eckhart defender in this movie, so.
I like Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
Again, I do think that Aaron Eckhart has also suffered from the Thomas Jane conundrum. like just so close, and like whatever it was, just couldn't push him over. Aaron Eckhart can really use a scene where he just tries to rob a drug dealer.
He could have had that in this movie.
Harvey is probably the best choice. I don't know if I like it better, but it's probably the best choice.
Now all I'm thinking about is like, what happens if it was Harvey Dent through like the prism of Mandy? So we just got that scene from Mandy where he's in the bathroom just chugging whiskey, but as Two-Face, and just be like,
Oh, I could see that.
see
Yeah.
Just
that.
screaming tidy whities.
Yeah.
Two-Face.
Yeah, like, see, that is the kind of Nicolas Cage that could have been brought to this role.
I do think he would be a really interesting Two-Face.
Yeah.
Two-Face, Face Off.
That's why he didn't do it, because he's already done a Two-Face movie.
Exactly. He's like, I don't want to get typecast.
That one where he did a John Travolta impression.
Yeah.
God, that movie's so good.
It is. It really is.
Well, I pretty clearly don't have this on my list. Cal, I'd wager you don't have it on yours either.
I literally said it at the beginning. I got none of this cape shit on my list.
I think
right.
it's the only mystery really is if it's on Dan's list, because obviously it's on my list.
I am told no, not Dan. This is
I made us talk about The Dark Knight for 2 hours. I'm
Yep.
the worst. It is.
No, listen, that's it. Yeah, it is just a solo Alex joint. Where? How high is it?
My
It's got to
power.
be in your top 20 somewhere.
It's 18. Just squeaked into the top 20.
18.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says.
Okay.
You can call it overrated. This movie was really a lot for 17-year-old Alex Stedman and has continued to.
Oh yeah, those movies are important.
Well, it can't be that high.
No, I mean we've discovered that 20 or higher on one list sneaks onto the. It's in the 90s somewhere. So
And it's
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
90, 90, 91. I'm going to say 91.
okay. I'll take the over.
Over.
I'm going to say 90.
90.
Exactly
90.
90. Yeah.
96.
96.
Yeah.
You guys aren't paying attention to the algorithm.
Clearly not, no.
I was really on a roll for a while.
Yeah, you got one exactly right at some
I
point. didn't
did. I did.
you? The real question is
So now we're
is
at
The
that
Dark
part.
Knight going to continue to be number 96?
It's
Cal,
not that high.
you-
96. Come on.
Cal, you are the only one
So
with the
I have a
strike
vote. And
available to you.
You know, Clint, we have been talking a lot this episode about how imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Do you guys know the full quote? Do you know that full quote?
I think I've heard it before, but I can't recall it now.
It's wonderful.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocre can pay to genius.
Oh, I have heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That Oscar Wilde was.
that he was,
Yeah. He had some bangers on him.
So I genuinely
Yeah.
feel that way about this film. Furthermore, last week we were talking about how Toy Story was a significant film because it fundamentally changed how Hollywood worked and funched.
Strike it.
I believe that this film is also one of those movies, but I think it's bad. Like I think the overall effect on The Dark Knight on Hollywood has been negative, and I'll acknowledge that it isn't The Dark Knight itself that has, completely ruined
We
Hollywood.
could make that about Star Wars, though. Like, Star Wars
I
also
don't-
ruined Hollywood. In its
Really,
own
I'm not
way.
getting 20
I feel
Star
like we
Wars
had
movies
the-
a year.
Yeah, we had that
I feel
discussion
like
in
we-
the Star
we
Wars
had this-
episode.
We had that conversation around Star Wars. I just don't think we were striking things yet when we were talking about Star Wars.
The point is as I was watching this movie this time around, I couldn't not think that this movie is a big part of the reason why the current present we live in is the way it is, and I f***ing hate the current.
My counterpoint to that is, if we're gonna have cape, make
$1 billion.
Make it good. Make it good. The Dark Knight is a great movie. I know you don't agree, but if we're gonna have cape, set the precedent where it should be good. We've had some good superhero movies.
Well, whenever it comes in the list later, then I'll work whatever f***ing Dan, like Mitch McConnell Dan rules he has then to try and get it off the list. But at this moment in time, I have the capacity to strike this movie.
But it's so low. 96.
You
Come
motherfuckers,
on. 96.
you motherfuckers have struck my my number 18, Uncut Gems, a masterpiece, because you guys,
That was your 18 also.
yeah,
That's funny.
because you felt uncomfortable.
Nobody's allowed to have an 18 on the show.
You know what they say about it.
Because you felt uncomfortable, that it made me feel tense. I am trying to say that this film had a significant detrimental effect on the output of Hollywood in the last 20 years, and for that reason, I'm striking it. It's out. 96, not no more.
I think I'm fine with you striking it, but that's not fair to the movie that it ruined Hollywood.
It did.
But so did every blockbuster. So did Star Wars. So did Jaws. So did Indiana Jones.
No.
Every blockbuster has
It's
played a
not
role.
like they're not making 5 shark movies a year.
But superhero movies were gonna be big anyway. Might as well make them good. Like The Dark Knight said, if you're gonna churn out these obvious cash grabs, make them amazing. Put such an incredible performance in it.
But we have 20 years of that, and these.
That's not its fault.
But this movie is let me put it to you this way: you're trying to say that superhero movies are this great thing, right? They were making. Really,
I didn't say that.
You're saying they were going to happen
I don't think
anyway.
she did say that.
Yeah,
That's fair. But I'm trying to so what you were trying to say is that they were inevitable.
Yeah, they were already making superhero movies, and a lot of them are bad. A lot of them are still bad.
Yeah, a lot of them right now are. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's to the Spielberg point of they're going to go the way of the Western, and we've had 20 years of these.
To my earlier point, we went the wrong direction. We went multiverse bullshit. We went CGI bullshit. If they took the right lessons from The Dark Knight, we would be in a better place.
But the point, they're never.
I feel
gonna,
that's the thing, right? Is that Hollywood never takes the right lesson
Yeah, Hollywood is
Yeah.
never going to take
from
the.
anything.
They're never going to take the
Yeah.
right lesson, and it's just they have been chasing this high for 20 years.
And it might as well be a good high they're chasing.
We have lost so many good potential movies because of this. Because not only have the studios
You're giving a lot of credit to it.
No, I'm not. Because not only have studios consolidated, but movies are the movie studios are releasing less movies every year. They're making less.
Yeah.
They're making less. So every $200 million movie is $550 or is $650 million.
I'm not arguing that this is bad where we're in. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Where we are is bad. But I don't think that's The Dark Knight's fault. I mean, as we said at the beginning of the episode, this came out 4 weeks after Iron Man. They were already doing their MCU. They were gearing
This
up.
actually came out before Iron Man.
Oh, maybe, yeah. It was something like
think.
that.
Whatever. Either way, we're
yeah.
not. Iron Man's not on the list right now, so
Yeah, no.
Iron Man's not currently on the chopping block. I feel like we could have the same conversation about Iron Man, but I think the conversation around movies that came out in 2008, the 2008 was already I mean, how many superhero movies did you rattle off? 7, 8, something like that?
And they were already
5 maybe.
investing in like we said, this movie had a big
the
budget
fact-
for the time. They
And
were
it's the
already
fact
going
that
there.
It was already a sequel too, but the fact that it made $1 billion and everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fact that it made $1 billion got all the chips on the table for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when, that made Marvel becoming its own studio much easier. That made I think there's a lot of dominoes that fell because The Dark Knight made $1 billion. It is tricky to blame The Dark Knight wholly for it.
I'm not blaming it wholly.
If I had a
part
strike,
of
I
that.
would probably use it for this too. So I'm not going to
Listen, I knew we were going to strike this. I just don't want to say that The
This is,
Dark Knight
weirdly
itself
enough, your-
all ruined Hollywood.
No, but it is
Your
it is-
OSS 117 is the fucking Dark Knight.
I know, a quite
How did
universally
that work?
beloved movie.
How many bro down kind of movies have you had to sit through on this show?
Oh,
And
I
then
know.
We're giving you a hard time about liking The Dark Knight.
I know, the most bro down movie.
Does not seem right.
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit right with me, but that's the show.
All right.
That's the show.
Now
That's the show.
watch
It's
this.
been a long episode.
Tayo probably filled that strike thing with a fucking bunch of westerns to with me.
I hope it's all Alex movies.
God, I hope so. What
Open
do
it
we
up. What do we
do I
got?
get to open it up?
Yeah.
Open it up.
Oh wait, no. So you don't get to participate.
No, I don't.
Because
Right, yeah, you struck it.
This is you and Clint now.
Oh, is this seal shot?
Nah.
Oh, rip it.
Why?
It is seal shot though.
We can't afford
It's the
manila
same
envelopes.
envelope.
Yeah.
We're keeping it.
Yeah, we don't want to read.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask Tayo to reprint.
So what do we?
Okay.
So what do we got?
Oh,
in
so
here?
we've got-
Oh, God damn it!
This is awesome. Memento.
Another Nolan movie.
Another Nolan. Iron Giant, baby. That's an Alex joint.
That's a superhero kind of movie too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Commando.
Is it Commando?
Kind of similar in its own right. And Hard Boiled.
I will take literally any of those movies
Hard-boiled.
over The Dark Knight.
Not on my list.
Man, so would I. We don't have any Hong Kong action on our list.
Nah.
I would wager.
Yeah.
We certainly haven't run into it yet.
It would be different for us. Who's Commando? Is
So do we?
Who's Commando?
that Dan?
Oh man, Cal, you've talked. We watched part of Commando at Sundance this year.
What?
Did we?
Like you were probably at a late screening or something like that, Alex. But I remember
I was like, where was I?
we were sitting there having a beer.
Oh, I thought you meant in a screening.
The chip's gone. We're gonna watch Commando.
I thought you meant in a screening. Like we went and got Commando.
No.
Of all the things to do at Sundance.
It was at the Airbnb. So that's probably a you pick, isn't it, Cal? The Commando.
I don't know.
I bet it sounds like Dan.
It's-
I don't know why I'm getting
okay.
Dan vibes.
I don't know.
I've
But
never.
I mean, if we need another superhero movie, I suppose 80s Schwarzenegger is as close as the 80s got.
Yeah. I've never seen Hard Boiled, so that's.
Hard boiled rules.
I've never seen it. I like seeing new movies.
I've seen enough of some of those films that they start to run together a little bit.
Obviously,
think?
I love Iron Giant, but whatever. I think I might be alone in that. Memento's interesting.
The Iron Giant was on on the heroes list. I think he was like the ultimate movie hero that I built the whole list towards.
I'm honestly trying to think of like what adds the most variety to the list. Honestly, it might be Hard Boiled.
I think it's gonna be Hard Boiled.
Yeah.
Hard boiled's the cool pick.
It's also so unexpected. You know what? I'm voting for Hard Boiled. I think that's kind of fun, and I've never
Let's
seen
do
it.
Hard
so
Boiled.
let's do
Yeah,
it.
I love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Hard Boiled.
Hard Boiled.
Our new 96.
You know how much I love Face Off. I'm a John Woo boy.
I recently rewatched Mission Impossible 2, and
That movie is fucking wild.
it's so wild.
Mission Impossible 2. When they do karate with motorcycles.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's pretty
And
cool.
doves. Don't forget about the doves.
God forbid.
All the doves. That's not just Mission Impossible 2.
No. But the doves are involved in the motorcycle karate.
That's true. They're pivotal. All right. Well, hey, Hard Boiled, welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
That is for sure.
Good work,
I
guys.
think.
Good work.
Terrible.
At least-
I'm upset.
At least.
Also, I just want to make you feel better.
at least-
Hard boiled is not on my list.
Oh, good. That does make me feel better.
isn't-
That does make
that
me feel
isn't
better.
my movie.
Yeah.
that's a Dan-ass movie. I think
Now
we
I
put-
don't
think
feel good about that.
We have successfully put another Dan-ass movie on the list, I think. But we'll have to wait until the Hard Boiled episode to figure that out. In the meantime, welcome aboard Hard Boiled. You gave The Dark Knight the boot, and you're now number 96. Okay. I love it. I feel like Joker would be proud of that amount of chaos.
I think he would.
And if nothing else we do on this show, it's to make the Joker proud. But that is going to do it for us this week. Thank you for watching The Dark Knight. Guys, sorry about that, Cal, that we had to do that. But
Listen,
do
this
what?
is. I made everyone talk about The Dark Knight for 2 hours, and this is how I win. At the end of the day.
all right, and I'm going to wrap this up the same way I started this, but thanks also to CineFix's silent guardian, producer Tayo Oyekan, our watchful protectors, technical producers Marhyan, Franzen, and Amir, Rakib. Our Dark Knight, who's really more of an appropriately lit knight, DP Jamie Parslow. And Dan doesn't get the voice, because I can only do so much.
Sell the shirt and the voice.
Don't forget to buy our Ikiru and Uncut Gems mashup shirt. This is how I win.
Nice.
Something like that?
Yeah, that
Good
works. That works.
Excellent.
All right. Well, in the meantime, how about you guys come back next week as we continue Season 3 Alone Against the World with another movie about morally dubious surveillance, The Truman Show. That's how those movies are related.
Uh-huh.
So between now and then, stay safe, be good. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. Bye.